While I was installing new flooring in our kitchen, my wife had no idea I was under the sink cabinet when her sister stopped by. "Have you told him you're moving out next month?" her sister asked. My wife replied, "No way. I need to get my promotion first and then take half the accounts." They started discussing the timing. I stayed completely quiet, still working, but inside I was fuming. I finished the renovation without saying a word about what I'd just heard. 5 days later, she told me she regretted everything she said. "Hey Reddit, I've been lurking here for years but never thought I'd post my own story. This still feels raw, like dropping a hammer on your thumb, but I need to get this out. Buckle up, this isn't a short one. My wife, Catherine, and I have been married for 7 years. We bought our first home together 3 years ago. Nothing fancy, just a 3-bedroom fixer-upper. Since I work in renovations, I've been updating it room by room. Our relationship felt a lot like that house. Good bones, strong base, just needed a little work. At least, that's what I believed. Last month, Catherine kept nudging me about finishing the kitchen before summer. Lately, she'd been acting different, staying late at work, always on her phone, taking calls in private. Typical red flags, but I chalked it up to stress over her upcoming promotion. Dumb me thought if I gave her the kitchen she wanted, she'd be happy. So last Saturday, I ripped out the old vinyl floors, ugly 90s stuff peeling at the edges, and got ready to lay the new vinyl planks that look like hardwood. Catherine had picked the color herself and was excited about how it matched the backsplash we chose. I was deep under the sink adjusting some pipes for the new cabinets when I heard the front door open. Catherine wasn't supposed to be back. Until later. She'd gone to brunch with her sister, Helen. They walked in laughing, not knowing I was within earshot. I was just about to say something when Helen asked, "Have you told him you're moving out next month?" My whole body froze. I went cold, like I'd been doused in ice water. I held my wrench, barely breathing. Catherine laughed. A sound that made my stomach turn. "No way," she said. "I need to get my promotion first and then take half the accounts." Her voice had this tone, sharp, calculating. If I leave before it goes through, I might not get it. But once I do, that's an extra 20 grand a year in my pocket. Helen asked if she was worried I'd catch on. Catherine just scoffed. "He's too busy with his tools to notice anything," she said. "He's predictable. He'll be crushed but won't do a thing." Then they started planning. Catherine had already lined up an apartment, had been quietly moving her stuff to Helen's place, even opened a secret bank account. After 7 years together, she was talking about me like I was just some fool she'd outsmarted. I was shaking with anger, gripping that wrench until my knuckles turned white. But I didn't move. Something told me to stay quiet and listen. They eventually moved into the living room, voices fading, but still clear. Catherine was asking how to get the most from our joint accounts. Helen recommended a friend who'd done the same in her divorce. They were planning it all down to the day. Catherine wanted to wait until after her parents' anniversary party, so it wouldn't ruin the celebration. How thoughtful. I lay there under the sink for what felt like forever. Probably 20 minutes until they left to go shopping. When the door closed, I crawled out, feeling like someone had hollowed out my chest. The worst part? We'd been talking about starting a family. I'd saved up $15,000 for fertility treatments because Catherine has PCOS. Money that now felt like a joke. I wandered the half-torn kitchen, mind racing. My first instinct was to pack and leave or confront her the moment she returned. But then I remembered what she'd said, that I was predictable, that I wouldn't fight. That's when I decided to prove her wrong. I picked up my tools and got back to work. By the time Catherine came home around 6, I had half the new flooring laid down. Every movement felt like therapy. She walked in, smiling, complimenting the work. Asked if I wanted takeout since the kitchen was torn up. I smiled and said, "Sure." That night was surreal. We ate Chinese on the couch, watched some Netflix show I couldn't pay attention to. She curled up next to me like everything was fine. Later, she even initiated sex. Was it guilt, or just keeping up the act? I played along, said I loved her before bed, all while silently vowing she'd regret every single word. I couldn't sleep. Once she was out, I got up and started digging. Her phone was locked, but I knew her laptop password. Nothing in the emails. But our joint bank accounts told the real story. She'd been moving money, $200 here, $300 there, to her personal account for months. Just enough to avoid suspicion. It added up to thousands. I took pictures of everything. At 3 a.m., I was on the porch texting my best friend Anthony. "Need to talk." "Marriage emergency. Not a joke," he replied instantly. We met the next day for lunch. Once I told him everything, he was furious. "Hit back harder than she expects," he said. "She thinks you're predictable. Prove her wrong." We mapped out a plan. Separate finances, gather evidence, consult a lawyer before she makes her move. Anthony's brother had gone through a messy divorce, so he had the inside scoop. His best advice? Don't tip your hand too soon. Keep the element of surprise. That evening, I went back to work on the kitchen with renewed purpose. Catherine texted she'd be late. Work stuff. Dinner, she called it. Yeah, right. I used that alone time to start putting my own plan in motion. First, I called the bank and opened a new personal account. Then I called the divorce attorney Anthony recommended and set up a meeting for Wednesday during lunch. While I was installing the last section of flooring, I found Catherine's old journal behind the fridge. Must have slipped back there when I took the cabinets out. I'm not proud, but I read it. The entries from the past 2 months confirmed everything. She'd been planning this, said she felt stuck, ready for a new chapter. Mentioned a guy from work, Ryan, more than once. Nothing directly said they were cheating, but it was clear something was up. One entry from 3 weeks ago hit me hard. It talked about fertility treatments again. She wrote she felt guilty, but didn't see the point in starting when she was planning to leave. It would just make things harder. That night, she came home smelling faintly of wine, makeup clearly touched up. I nearly snapped. Almost threw the journal in her face and watched her life collapse. But I remembered Anthony's advice. Strategic patience. Let her think it's all going her way while I quietly dismantle it. "Kitchen looks great, babe," she said, kissing my cheek. "You're so talented. This will add so much value to the house." The irony wasn't lost on me. Value. She wanted to cash out without me. "I just want you to be happy," I said, the words like ashes in my mouth. "I am happy," she lied, straight to my face, without hesitation. "Happy with you." I nodded, turned back to my work, too afraid my expression would give everything away. That's when I decided. This renovation would be my masterpiece, and my revenge would be just as carefully crafted. Tuesday morning, she left early for a big presentation. I called in sick and spent the whole day gathering intel. I photographed all our important documents, made copies of our tax returns, logged every valuable item in them, house with dates and estimated values, checked every account balance and took screenshots. By Tuesday night, I had the full financial picture and the start of my plan. The kitchen was nearly done, just had to install the sink and finish the backsplash. Catherine came home full of praise, talking about having a dinner party to show off my work. The nerve of it. She was planning to entertain friends she'd keep after tossing me aside in a kitchen I built for her. Looking at her across that half-finished room, I realized how completely I'd misunderstood our relationship. It wasn't solid. It was rotten from the start. "Something wrong?" she asked, seeing my face. "Just tired," I said. "Been working hard to finish this for you." She smiled, apparently bought it. "It'll be worth it. This kitchen is going to be amazing." "Yeah," I said, turning back to the sink. "You have no idea how..." Amazing it's going to be. I worked late into the night, listening to her whisper on the phone in our bedroom. Probably Helen. Maybe Ryan. At that point, the details didn't matter. What mattered was what I'd do next. By Wednesday morning, the outline of my plan was solid. I gave myself 5 days. 5 days of acting, renovating, and setting the stage. 5 days until Catherine would regret every smug word, and she wouldn't see it coming. Update 1. Wow, I wasn't expecting this post to blow up. Thanks for the support, Reddit. Here's what happened in the 5 days after I found out my wife's plan. Day 1, Wednesday. The morning after lunch with Anthony, I woke up feeling weirdly clear. Catherine was already gone. Early meeting, per her text. The house felt different, like I was flipping a property and could see past the mess to the potential. My meeting with the divorce lawyer was eye-opening. I brought all our financial records and she was blunt. It was lucky I found out before Catherine made a move. In my state, it's not illegal for a spouse to clear out joint accounts. If she'd taken everything first, I'd be screwed. That afternoon, I opened a new individual account at a completely different bank. Then I moved exactly half of our joint savings, $37,000, not a penny more. I wasn't going to play dirty like Catherine, but I wasn't going to get walked over, either. When I got home, I dove back into the kitchen. That backsplash she picked, a tricky herringbone pattern, took forever, but looked incredible. She came home around 7 with takeout again, said her promotion might come sooner than expected. That set off alarms. I'd overheard her saying her escape plan was tied to that promotion. She showed me new shoes, 3rd pair this month. Old Catherine was careful with money. This new version acted like she already had the accounts to herself. When she went upstairs, I texted Anthony. He replied quick. Good start. Tomorrow, we go nuclear. Operation GTFO. Day 2, Thursday. This was all about documentation and intel. Sounds extreme, but if your wife's planning to clean you out, you get serious fast. Before she got up, I took pictures of everything valuable in the house, made a spreadsheet of purchase dates and who paid. While she showered, I peeked at her planner. She had a 1 p.m. meeting with Janine. That's her friend who also divorced and, according to Catherine's sister, totally drained her ex's accounts. Around noon, I installed a parental monitoring app on our shared laptop. She used it more, and I needed to know what she was doing. By mid-afternoon, I had the backsplash finished and was putting on new cabinet handles, expensive matte black ones Catherine picked out. Anthony came by after work with beer and pizza. We sat on the back deck and talked, where no one could hear us. I asked if I was overreacting. He just looked at me like I was a fool, reminded me of all her secret moves, new bank account, the hidden apartment lease, sneaking her stuff to her sister's place. When we heard her car, Anthony slipped out the back. Catherine walked in almost glowing. She hugged me from behind, said the promotion was practically confirmed, should get the offer by Monday or Tuesday. That night in bed, she curled up next. To me, like everything was perfect, asked if the kitchen would be done by Saturday for a possible party. I told her it'd be done tomorrow, early even. After she fell asleep, I checked the laptop. New emails between her and Helen. They'd signed the lease yesterday. Move-in date, exactly 4 weeks away. Day 3, Friday. Time to grind. Most of the kitchen was done, just final touches, under-cabinet lighting, caulking, paint fixes. First, I went to the safe and took my grandma's jewelry. Catherine wore it sometimes, but it wasn't hers. I wrapped it up and dropped it off at my parents' house. Then I went to the bank, closed our joint credit card, and opened a new one in my name at a different bank. While I was out, I called the fertility clinic. I told her I needed to close our joint account and that the $15,000 we'd saved would be returned in 5 to 7 business days. I gave her the details for my new personal account. Back home, I was putting the final touches on the kitchen. As I installed the last piece of trim, I felt this strange mix of pride and bitterness. I had built something beautiful, something she'd barely get to enjoy. But I wasn't done just yet. I had one more special addition in mind. I carefully removed the new cabinet under the sink, the exact one I'd been working under when I overheard them talking. Inside the wall, I left a sealed Ziploc bag with a printed transcript of what I'd heard her say that day, along with copies of her apartment lease, bank transfers, and a page from her journal. It was petty, but deeply satisfying in a way words can't describe. When Catherine got home, she let out a squeal when she saw the finished kitchen, saying it looked even better than she imagined. We ended up ordering sushi, and Catherine took photos for Instagram, using tags like Kitchen Reno, Chark's Dream Kitchen, Chat's Blissful Home. Later, she came downstairs wearing lingerie I'd never seen before, saying she wanted to properly break in the new kitchen. For a moment, I almost told her I knew everything, but I reminded myself just 2 more days until everything would be in place. So I went along with it, feeling nothing but disgust with every move. Later that night, I checked the monitoring app again. She had texted Helen. Kitchen looks amazing. Almost feel bad about the timing, but not really. He'll find another house to flip. LOL. Day 4, Saturday. Catherine was buzzing with excitement about having friends over that evening to show off the kitchen. While she was out shopping, I finished all my financial prep, updated my direct deposit, backed up important files, downloaded all our photos from the cloud. My friend Anthony came by to help move some essentials into his garage. Nothing she'd notice right away, but things I didn't want lost in the chaos of a breakup. He asked if I was sure about waiting until tomorrow. Wouldn't it be better to end it before she had friends over? I explained I wanted her to feel on top of the world tonight. The higher she was, the harder the crash tomorrow would be. By 6 p.m., guests started showing up. Helen was first, giving me this odd, almost guilty hug. It made me wonder just how much she knew. The evening felt surreal. I grilled steaks, poured drinks, laughed at jokes, all while watching Catherine act like the picture-perfect wife. During dinner, the topic shifted to future plans. One couple mentioned trying for a baby, and everyone looked at us. Without missing a beat, Catherine jumped in, saying we were planning to start trying soon too. I nearly choked on my beer. The nerve she had. Across the table, Helen looked a little uncomfortable. At least she had the decency to feel guilty about the lie. Day 5, Sunday. The last day arrived, and almost symbolically, it was cloudy with a storm in the forecast. Catherine was still asleep when I got up and made coffee. I sat at the kitchen island, admiring the room I'd built one last time. Every detail of this day had been planned. Her parents were coming over for lunch, her idea, not mine. She wanted them to see the kitchen too. Everyone important to her would be there when the truth came out. As I sipped my coffee, I felt a strange calm. All the chaos and anger had hardened into a clear resolve. I wasn't caught in a whirlwind anymore. I was placing the final piece on my perfect act of revenge. Catherine came downstairs around 9, yawning and asking if I'd made coffee for her. She didn't even notice anything off, too busy on her phone, talking about lunch plans. Her parents were set to arrive at noon. That meant I had 3 hours left of pretending, 3 hours until I would destroy the fantasy life she thought she'd created. The storm started right as her parents pulled into the driveway, rain pounding the windows as I opened the door. It felt like the perfect backdrop for what was about to unfold. Final update, because so many of you asked how it ended. Here it is the day my wife realized she picked the wrong contractor. Go grab a drink, this is a long one. Sunday morning felt different, like the moment right before you swing a sledgehammer. Everything ready, just waiting for the hit. That was me at the kitchen island, sipping coffee, watching the storm roll in. Catherine came downstairs, still sleepy, clueless about what was coming. She poured herself coffee and started talking about lunch prep for her parents. I just nodded while scrolling through my phone, double-checking every part of the plan. I hadn't slept much, not from nerves, but because I wanted to remember every second of what was about to go down. 7 years of marriage, about to collapse. Catherine's mom texted that they'd be 15 minutes late. Catherine looked annoyed. She hated her plans getting thrown off. She started chopping vegetables, commenting how the new counters made prep so much easier. The irony hit hard. She was admiring a kitchen she thought she'd enjoy without me. While she worked, I propped my phone on the window ledge, angled at the kitchen island, and hit record. Not for court. My state requires two-party consent. But for my own memory, in case she ever tried to twist what happened. At 12:15, the doorbell rang. Her parents walked in, damp but cheerful. Her dad, Tom, commented on the paint job I'd done last summer. Her mom, Diane, brought flowers for the table. She was always sweet like that. I liked her parents, which made what I was about to do harder. Catherine led them on a tour, proudly, pointing out all the new features like she'd done the work herself. They admired everything, and when Tom asked about cost, Catherine brushed it off. "We'll talk numbers later." I almost laughed. She had no idea what numbers we'd be talking about. When the tour ended, we sat down for lunch. Catherine made her mom's lasagna recipe, one of the only meals she could cook well. Conversation flowed, eventually landing on Catherine's upcoming promotion. This was the moment. She started talking about how excited she was, how it meant more money for our future. She even squeezed my hand while saying it. The perfect image of a loving wife. Her dad raised his glass in a toast. Everyone followed, clinking glasses. That's when I decided it was time. I set my glass down, smiled, and said I had an announcement too. Something to add to the celebration. Everyone turned to look at me. Catherine's face showed a mix of curiosity and irritation, probably annoyed that I interrupted her moment. I said I'd found something interesting under the sink during the renovation. She didn't react at first, just looked confused. I tapped my phone a few times and placed it on the table. Then the recording began to play, clear audio of Catherine. And Helen, "Have you told him you're moving out next month?" "No way, I need to secure my promotion first, then take half the accounts?" I cut the audio down to the most incriminating 30 seconds. As it played, I watched the color drain from Catherine's face. Her parents froze, forks halfway to their mouths. When the clip ended, the only sound was the rain tapping against the windows. Total silence. Then her mom whispered, asking if that was really her voice. Catherine looked stunned, then embarrassed, and finally furious. She turned on me, shouting every insult she could think of. Said I had no right to record her, that it was illegal, and I was twisting everything. I just let her keep going, digging, herself in deeper. When she finally ran out of steam, I calmly told them I hadn't recorded the original conversation. I was under the sink, fixing a leak, and heard every word as it happened. Her dad pushed his plate aside and asked if it was true. Was she really leaving? Had she already rented a place? Was she going to drain our accounts? Catherine started crying, but not real tears, the kind she used when caught lying before. She claimed I was a bad husband, said I'd been distant, emotionally unavailable, that I hadn't cared about her for years. Accusations out of nowhere. Her mom gently took her hand and asked why she never told them our marriage was struggling. Catherine mumbled something about not wanting to worry them. I could see her trying to spin it, playing the victim. That's when I laid it all out. The hidden bank account, the signed apartment lease, the jewelry and personal stuff already moved to Helen's place, and the texts and emails where she plotted how to take as much of our money as she could. With each new detail, her parents looked more horrified. Her dad just kept shaking his head. Her mom was crying. Catherine made one last attempt, saying I must be cheating. That's why I was doing all this. I laughed, pulled out my phone, and showed her screenshots of her texts with a guy named Ryan from work. Nothing outright saying affair, but plenty of flirty messages to show something shady was going on. That's when her dad stood up. He's the old-school type, big on morals. He told her they needed to leave and think everything over. The disappointment on his face wasn't for me. It was for her, his perfect little girl. As they grabbed their coats, her mom gave me a hug and whispered how sorry she was. Her dad gave me a firm handshake and said he'd call. Neither of them looked back at Catherine. Once the door shut, Catherine's fake crying stopped cold. She exploded, screaming that I'd ruined everything. Her relationship with her parents, her life. Said I'd never understand why she wanted to leave. But I was weirdly calm. When she stopped yelling, I told her I had one more thing to share. While she'd been scheming, I'd been making moves too. I told her I'd already moved half of our savings into an account in my name only, closed all our joint credit cards, contacted the fertility clinic, and redirected the $15,000 we'd saved to my account, and documented every valuable item in the house with proof of ownership. She went from angry to panicked, fumbling for her phone to check the accounts. Her hands were shaking so badly, she dropped it twice before logging in. Then she saw it. Half the money was gone. Gone legally. She couldn't touch it. That's when she tried a new tactic, sobbing again, saying it had all been a mistake, that she was scared, confused, that Helen filled her head with bad ideas, and she never really planned to leave. I asked her about the apartment, the hidden bank account, the stuff already moved out. She had no answers. Then, in full desperation, she tried getting close, placed her hand on my chest, said we could fix this, that she was sorry, and the promotion meant more money for us both. I stepped back and told her I'd already met with a divorce lawyer. The paperwork was ready to go in the morning. I wasn't asking for alimony, even though I'd supported her through grad school. I just wanted what was fair and a clean break. Her expression shifted, pure shock, as it hit her that she'd misjudged me, that I wasn't the predictable guy she thought I was. While she was planning to ditch me, I'd been 10 steps ahead. She asked where I'd go. I said I'd arranged to stay with Anthony for a while and was moving out today. Catherine followed me upstairs, still trying different angles, worried about what people would think, how this could ruin her promotion, what would happen if she lost the house. As I packed, I told her I wouldn't talk badly about her to our friends or her job, but I also wouldn't lie if anyone asked. When I finished packing my essentials, I headed downstairs with Catherine still trailing behind, switching between begging and threatening. In the kitchen, I paused. For one last moment. I looked around at the space I'd designed and told her I'd left her a final surprise. Something hidden, something she wouldn't discover unless she renovated the kitchen again one day. I didn't say what it was, just that it would always remind her of the end. She'd never know what was behind the backsplash or under the cabinet, and that uncertainty would haunt her. Then I handed her a folder, copies of everything I found: lease, bank records, texts, journal entries. I told her I kept the originals somewhere safe, not as blackmail, just so she knew denying it was pointless. As I loaded my suitcase into my truck, the rain had finally stopped, and weak sunlight peeked through. Catherine stood in the doorway, arms crossed, mascara streaked down her cheeks. I felt one small pang of sadness. 7 years is a long time, even if the relationship was rotting underneath. I drove to Anthony's. He was waiting on the porch with 2 beers. No judgment. No, I told you so. Just support. That night, Catherine blew up my phone with angry, then sad, then desperate messages. I read them but didn't reply. Helen called twice. I let it go to voicemail. Catherine's mom texted just once, said she was thinking of me. That night, even on Anthony's lumpy guest bed, I slept better than I had in weeks. The weight was gone. No more pretending. Monday morning, my attorney filed the divorce papers. Monday afternoon, Catherine's promotion was announced on LinkedIn. The timing couldn't have been better. She got what she wanted at work. On the same day her personal life collapsed. By Tuesday, she'd taken her relationship status off Facebook. It's been 3 weeks now. I've found a small apartment near my job and have been diving into projects to stay busy. Some days are hard. You don't just erase 7 years. Catherine tried reaching out again. Even showed up at Anthony's once. I've stayed no contact. Except through the attorney. It's simpler that way. Most of our friends picked sides. Some were stunned. Others said they saw signs. A few tried to suggest counseling. They mean well, but they don't get that some things are too broken to fix. Yesterday, I drove past the old house. There was a for sale sign out front. I guess Catherine doesn't want to live with the kitchen I built anymore. Maybe it's the memories. Maybe she can't stand wondering what's hidden in the walls. Or maybe she needs the cash now that her plan fell apart. Whatever the reason, that sign felt like the last piece of demolition. Our marriage is gone, down to the foundation. And you know what? I'm finally ready to start building something new. This time, on solid ground.